obviously the unique thing of this particular boat class, they have a cox who's steering them, so that's one thing the athletes don't have to worry about. Both crews actually trying to get that boat speed, that whole speed up to maximum as quickly as possible.
And that's one of the biggest differences of the four with cox is, although you then have someone to take off the pressure with steering and the calls, you do have an extra weight. So going from standing still up to maximum speed, you have an extra bit of, I wouldn't say dead weight, it seems unfair to the cox to call them that, but you know, there is a solid mass that you wouldn't have in a coxless boat that just takes a little bit longer to get that acceleration away from the island.
But just thinking about that kind of start phase into that kind of cruising pace, when you used to compete, was it something that was just a natural thing, or did you have a certain process you would go through?
I think all boats probably have a process, but you know, the best boats, it's very, after a few races, it's instinctual. You feel it, you know when you've hit the right rhythm, you know when it's feeling right. I mean, like at this point now, when you start moving away, you know you've got it just as sweet as you need to. And then now, I mean, we can see the waves from these shots. You can see it's not the most comfortable conditions, but you want to feel that relaxation and length growing. I think the boats that don't work as well together, then it feels like you need to have a much more sort of structured process to kind of get it right.
And that's also about having the right people in the right seats, isn't it? You know, finding that kind of blend, you know, who has that kind of rhythm or that transition, who can do the calls, and just, you know, making sure that you maximise the talent you have.
Absolutely, and what you want is you want someone in the boat who can really read the boat well, so who can, you know, and again in these boats it'll be the cox, but you want to make, sometimes it's very small adjustments. If it doesn't feel quite right, there's small adjustments to correct it, and having someone who can read a boat feel well will know exactly what we need to change to make the boat go even better. And this is when you see, you know, this just the difference between two crews sometimes is just the crew that's found that extra special level of rhythm and timing.
And you can see that Hinksey Sculling School has moved out and taken a length's lead over the Cambridge 99 Rowing Club. Just obviously those challenges we talked about, the conditions with the wind, just trying to maximise or making sure your boat speed doesn't drop. Obviously talks about how long it takes to get a cox four up to speed. The last thing we want to do is lose any speed.
And we've said these are, I mean, the prevailing conditions today is headwind. So again, it's a slower race, it's a longer race because of that wind. And again, in a slightly heavier boat, it's going to take, you know, it takes a bit of physical toll as it goes down the course. So again, it's trying to be as efficient as possible. So you're using as little energy as needed every single stroke. And again, when you're a crew that's out leading, who's got a length lead like this, it's not entirely comfortable yet, but you can start to really relax and let the rhythm go. If you're behind, there's a sense of you're chasing, you have to make up ground, and that's tough in a strong headwind.
So a shot from the stern of the Cambridge 99 Rowing Club. You just see the effort the crews putting in there to try and get back on terms with the Hinksey Sculling School.
I'm enjoying the bucket hats and sunglasses. I feel like it could be summer. I mean, it doesn't look like summer, but
I think that's a fashion trend that's going on. I really do. I've seen sort of the Olympic Games. There was a few athletes wearing them. I've seen it a lot at Henley.
Bucket hats, the way forward.
Bucket hats. And I like the variation of colours that I've seen as well.
Colour is everything at Henley, isn't it? Yeah. Scanning around those blazers.
So as you can see, Hinksey Sculling School are maintaining their lead. And this is when it's quite difficult with cox now, because they obviously can't see their competitors. And someone in the crew needs to relay that information to the cox, let them know how far in front we are, so they can maybe start to change their calls.
And this is the art of communication, isn't it? In a boat, when you're flat out, you're physically being pushed to the limits, and you're trying to keep your technique together in challenging conditions, can you still get that fluent communication in a word or two forward and back in the crew? So from the stroke back to the cox and forward again about what needs to be done.
But as you can see, the Hinksey Sculling School continue to move out on the Cambridge 99 Rowing Club as they extend their lead. It's a great aerial shot there of the course.
It's always in those shots you feel there's so much room for both crews, but whenever you're sitting in those boats, especially with the steering foot on, it doesn't feel that much space, does it?
It does feel so narrow, doesn't it? It was a long time ago since I was out there, but...
Just like yesterday, Mark, come on. And yeah, you're right, they're not troubling the umpire at all. Sarah Winkless has got a nice easy one here. They're very much on their own side of the river, not troubling each other, not troubling the booms. And they've both just settled into sort of really steady rhythms now.
And that's the beauty of having a Cox, isn't it? You know, keeping that line, so as athletes you can just think about the kind of process, the movement, move it together, unison. See, the umpire's launch just stays directly, is the center point of the course. And obviously each crew has their own side, their own station on either side of that. As you can see, the Hinksey Sculling School Cox 4 coming towards us. You can see the Cox hidden away in the front loader. It's amazing, like in the old days when the Cox used to sit in front of the stroke person, as they do in an 8, in a Cox 4, and obviously it moved to this front loader design, which is definitely, I'm sure for the stroke person, much more enjoyable than staring at someone.
And also clearly, you know, partly designed it's going to be faster, they're lower in the boat. They've got a sort of, you know, they're not sitting up and potentially slowing the boat down in any way. But it's, you know, it's an odd position to be in for the Cox, because as you say, in this sort of event, it's hard to know exactly what's happening behind you unless you do hear from your own crew and your own team. So if suddenly Cambridge 99 were to be able to close a margin, then the Cox in the Hinksey Sculling School would have to react very fast, very quickly without being able to see anything. And that's, you know, that is that art of communication, isn't it? And
that's even harder in a boat that takes time to get up to speed and to change speed, where, as you talked about earlier, the smaller boats you can change speed very quickly, but in this particular boat it's like a diesel engine. It just takes time to get going, doesn't it? You kind of wind it up.
They're going to be winding up to the finish now. It's the lovely bit, once we keep seeing again with this brilliant people who've come out to weather all sorts of wind and rain today, but they're going to be there supporting the crews. And this is the privilege of Henley, when you get so close to those crowds and get to get the applause as you come into the finish.
So the Hinksey Sculling School have just increased their lead over the whole of the racetrack. Really a convincing dominant performance here. As they cross the line ahead of Cambridge 99 Rowing Club. See, they're very pleased they pass us in the commentary booth here. So that was a win for the Hinksey Sculling School over Cambridge 99 Rowing Club in the Britannia Challenge Cup.
Around